My name is James Terry Parker Jr. I'm a junior because I'm named after my dad. Many of you call me June for short. You don't know me as J. Red Slevin. I was born January the 2nd, 1979, St. Louis, Missouri. My sisters are Tara Thomas, Nicole Burse. I'm the baby of the family. So that means I was a spoiled one. We grew up in church a whole lot. We had a lot of fun in church. You know, we had a lot of fun outside of church as well, but it was just something about our church that was really energetic. It was fun and it was exciting. So I wanted to be there. But also when we went home, you know, we seen the other side of the fence. Church is talking about the goodness of the Lord and talking about how good God is. And I seen many miracles as a child. But also, you know, when we went home, we seen the reality of the street life and the streets. Yeah, my mom worked 2 jobs to support us. My dad left at a really, really early age, and I really resented him for leaving. I didn't understand a lot when I was that young, but I did know, you know, Dad just wasn't there. I didn't know why. My mom really didn't talk bad about my dad. She didn't even really mention him at all. But sometimes when you see other kids with their dad, it kind of makes you wonder, where's my dad? We went to church at 2922 North Grand under Pastor Henry Williams. Even in a young age, I can feel the Lord, you know, tugging at me, doing something to my heart. I always wanted to be in church, to be helpful around the church. I was always active around the church, and, you know, the Spirit of God would always move in that church all the time. We seen unbelievable stuff. I seen miracles. I seen, just different instances of God's power. I also played the drums at my church at age 2. I started playing the drums. And I felt the Spirit of God moving in my heart. He was kind of dealing with me even as a small child. I knew that I was supposed to do something for God. But however, when I became a teenager, things began to change. I began to ignore that tugging of my heart from the Lord. I began to ignore, all the stuff that I was taught growing up. And I began to be lured in by Satan himself, from the distractions of this life, having fun, partying, experimenting with drugs, not actually doing drugs, but selling drugs, and smoking cigarettes, staying out, breaking curfew, being just rebellious, just giving my mom a bunch of problems, probably a lot of problems that she didn't deserve, of course, but I still began to do the opposite of what I was taught, kind of breaking her heart and making her stay up late at night worrying about me, and I know she was praying for me every night that, she wouldn't get that phone call that something was terribly wrong or I've been killed or in an accident. So I really started to rebel around my teenage years, 14 and 15 years old, and that's when I began to get in trouble with the cops. I got arrested, caught my first few felonies when I was 15 years old, just by merely being with the wrong group of people, wrong time, wrong place kind of thing. So, and my dad wasn't, I still didn't really know where he was. Well, actually I knew where he was, but he lived in Arkansas, a little town called Forest City, Arkansas. And I didn't really talk to him at all. I can remember maybe when I was 8 years old, we went down to visit down there because it's not really to visit him, but it was a funeral of somebody on his side of the family. I didn't even know who it was. I think it might have been my grandpa. I could be wrong. But I really never had a relationship with my dad. He never called, never came over to the house. He never came from St. Louis. He just wasn't around. When I was 15 years old, that's when I really began to experiment with marijuana and alcohol and just the party lifestyle. Even though church really excited me as a child, I still felt that on the other side, maybe it was things that I wanted to experience outside of what I've been taught not to deal with or not to try, and it just, kind of lured me in as far as, the fast life, the, fast money and the party lifestyle. At the age of 15, I became a felon. I was with somebody that I shouldn't have probably been with and doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, of course. But, I'm not condoning what I did, but I was just young and stupid. I didn't, take into consideration how that would follow me the rest of my life. And it kind of opened the doors to all the wrong things in life as far as me even having a record, me being marked as a felon at such a young age, and when you become a felon, you can't get that back. You can't take that off your record unless you got a really, really good lawyer. And my mom was pretty much the only breadwinner in my family, so we didn't have the kind of income to acquire a really good lawyer to get that expunged off my record. So, you know, I just got in a lot of unnecessary trouble back then, and it brought a lot of heartache and shame to my family. I don't remember a whole lot about my dad, except I remember he was a musician. He would play in the kitchen with his band, and they would practice all the time, but I don't really remember him getting gigs or him going to do concerts or nothing of that sort. So I kind of think that that's where my musical side come from, is from him, because he was pretty talented, but however, his drinking, you know, led him not to be, you know, productive in his dream and his goals. So I think I kind of picked up the torch of where he might have dropped it, you know, but also I do remember myself, you know, like I said, at age 15, beginning to drink a lot, and, you know, I was probably what you might call a functioning alcoholic, because I would always drink, but yet I would be busy and productive at what I was doing, but I would just always make that a part of my everyday life, is I had to have a drink, or I had to have some marijuana, or I had to, you know, be in that atmosphere every day. And if I wasn't drinking or if I wasn't smoking, you know, I was probably asleep, because I just was in that kind of party atmosphere all the time. I kind of carried the party with me no matter where I was at. Yeah, so, you know, at the time when I was 15 and I started to get in trouble, you know, getting in trouble and going to jail became a real common thing with me. I mean, I was always going to jail, always, even for the littlest things. I mean, we can get pulled over and it'll be 10 of us, 2 cars deep, and, you know, I'd be the only one out of the 10 that got arrested every time. It never failed. So trouble kind of followed me. But, you know, even in this period of my life, I still felt down in my heart that you know, even though I partied and had fun and all that kind of stuff, stayed out past curfew, I still had something tugging at my heart. I wasn't really satisfied, because once the marijuana wears off, once the alcohol wears off, you know, I just still felt like I was missing something. Something was missing. So, you know, I even had, you know, Satan himself felt like he was sitting on my left shoulder telling me that, you know, look at all of this and look at all of this and look at all the, you know, my role models became the bad people, you know, the drug dealers, the pimps, the thugs, and the people that did the wrong out of life. Them became my role models, and the people that I kind of patterned myself after, because, you know, that's what I seen right before me right then. But then you have Satan still trying to tempt me, and he would, you know, always try to, just like he tempted Jesus in the wilderness when Jesus was fasting 40 days and 40 nights, how he would show him all the kingdoms of the world, and, you know, and all the glory of them. So that's what he was trying to do to me, show me all the glory of the world. And instead of, you know, when my heart began to yearn for church and yearn for what I was raised and brought up in, he would always try to distract me. I mean, just like wipe my mind out of it. Now look at this, look at that. So I kind of, you know, fell for that at the time, and I began to go even further down that dark path that I was traveling on. Well, back in elementary school, you know, my music teacher put together a rap group, and I was one of the members of the rap group. There was 3 other members in the rap group, and so, you know, I kind of start figuring that maybe instead of me getting in all this trouble and worrying my mom to death and, you know, keeping her in total disarray all the time, maybe I should do something productive with my time, and maybe that helped me, deter me from being in trouble so much. So I had to turn to rap music. You know, many people from my church didn't like that. Many people that knew me and knew that I had a call in my life, they didn't really agree with it. But then I started to not get in trouble as much, so I used it as a getaway, a gateway, you know, a platform to do something different. My first time coming into a major studio, I don't even know who told me about it, but somebody told me about a studio that was in Park Hills in the basement of Marla's Music. So I went to check it out, and quite naturally, the way I traveled was always with a big group of people, you know, and I was just getting my feet wet, you know, as far as doing my own thing and trying to form a group. And so we formed this group of me, myself, True, Pimp, Train, Kane, and my sister was the lead singer, Black Angel. So we all went into this group. We all like met up somewhere in Park Hills, and we all went to this studio that we had no idea how to manage our time, because You know, it was like $45 an hour in the studio. But long story short, we went in the studio and it took us forever just to record one song. But you know, the more we tried, you know, the more distractions came in the studio. We weren't really focused. We spent a whole lot of money on one song that didn't even really go anywhere. And but we tried, but we respectfully went our separate ways as far as a group thing. But I still worked with a lot of those artists after, you know, we kind of split up the group. That's when J. Red Slevin was born. I became a solo artist, and I just featured a whole lot of my artists and my friends on my CDs itself, and that's how it all began. So after we, you know, kind of split and went our respectful separate ways, I then began to figure out how to use studio time wisely and how to be productive and get in and get out, and, I mean, without using very much time. And so I began to run my own shows and set up different concerts. And then the word in the street got out about this young, ambitious, crazy rapper that, you know, will put on a show. I mean, I'm not bragging or nothing like that, but if you ever see me perform, you know, it'll stick with you a little bit. I was a lot more different than everybody else. And I began to get a lot of street recognition, a lot of independent shows, and things were really good. You know, I was getting recognized. I had respect. I had, you know, I'd be pumping my gas at a gas station and hear cars driving by playing my music. I mean, so anything a man could ever want, a young man at that, you know, could ever even dream of, it was becoming a reality, you know. And I really, believe it or not, I wasn't going to jail as much. I wasn't getting in trouble as much as I used to. So music was a very great tool, an escape tool that I used to stay out of trouble as much. However, I was still, you know, lay in bed at night and be very much just tormented. You know, I'd pass out a lot from drinking so much, and I'd be just tormented, just with this torment of waking up and going to hell, you know, just dying in my sleep. That was just like a torture for me every day. So, you know, God was still dealing with me. Even though I got away from God and got away from church, God's hand was still on my life. And one thing about God is you can't run from God. And I remember, you know, I just would want something better than what I had, as far as, you know, when the fame and the fun and all the people and everybody leaves you, and the rush of being on stage and all that wears off, you still have to go home by yourself, and you still have to deal with the reality of, you know, maybe there is something different. Maybe there is a hell. Maybe there is a heaven. Maybe I always believed that there was a hell and a heaven, but it really becomes reality when you begin to just feel the hand of God still telling you, look, this is not it. I got something better for you. So I began to go through that phase of my life, and I began to notice that I just wasn't satisfied with the lifestyle of a rapper. It still wouldn't satisfy me. And I really believe that's why David wrote that psalm, the deep calls into the deep, because it was something deep in my heart that still needed more satisfaction. And I couldn't really explain it, but I knew that it was God's hand on my life. It was God still letting me know that, you know, you need to really slow down and really take into consideration of my love and my mercy and my grace towards your life. Yeah, during my life, during my time as a rapper, during my time as J. Red, I would, you know, we would have to, you know, be on the road a lot, traveling, and I would get pulled over, you know, or it'd be a cop sitting, you know, setting speed traps or whatever, and many times I did get pulled over, and I had a lot of illegal stuff in the car, and you know, I don't really remember myself praying a whole lot, but that's one of the times I prayed a lot. You know, Lord, don't let me get pulled over. Lord, don't let this cop find whatever I got hid, and things like that. And I remember making many promises to God that if He got me out of certain situations, or, you know, for instance, one time I got pulled over and I had some things hid in the car, and I told God that if you get me out of this, I'll change. But it didn't really turn out that way. But God did help me. But, you know, just a lot of things that I did was just so off the wall, and God blessed me and had mercy on me so many times where He didn't have to. So it began to really, bother me that, this lifestyle one day is going to either send me to prison for a long time or get me killed in the streets. And I really believe God spared me many of those times is because, he did hear my prayer. Not necessarily because I'm June or I'm J Red. It was because he was watching over his gift that he gave me. God, gives gifts without repentance. So that means, if he did put a gift on your life, which I really believe strongly deep in my heart that everybody on this earth has a gift from God, even atheists, they just don't know it. And I believe that God, was protecting his gift that he gave me. And he had mercy on me. But, it's also a cutoff time when God's mercy runs out. People don't believe that. But if you continue to reject a good, loving God, that's why the Bible says that, for many are called, but few are chosen, because only few will receive or accept, the redemption of him dying on the cross. So I believe that God really spared me many of those times because he knew that one day I would say yes. One of the high points in my career is when I won a contest to open up for Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, which is a Grammy award-winning group. They did so many projects with so many famous rappers and people I've listened to all my life as far as when I became interested in being a rapper. And so just the pleasure to open up for them, it really catapulted my career in a place to where I was way more recognized and people were calling me way more often for concerts. And that was the first time I ever seen 6,000 people, So I got to perform in front of over 6,000 people. And it just skyrocketed my career to where I wanted to be in my recognition as a rapper. And after that, that's when I began to get more phone calls and more notoriety as who I was. And, it just things was looking up. But at the same time, something was in my heart that was telling me, it was a high, but it was a really fast low, because I knew that one day it was just something about being a rapper and being out in the streets and doing drugs and drinking and having all that fun that, the Bible says you reap what you sow. So I knew one day if I didn't change my life and repent of my sins or even try to go in that direction of salvation, that one day I would eventually pay for it with my soul. And it really matters. My pastor really taught us as kids growing up, or in anybody in the church, that if you care about your soul, you'll do something about it. And I can always hear him in my ear, in my head, just repeating that over and over and over. If you care about your soul, you'll do something about it. Even at the height of my career as a rapper, something was still missing, and I know that something that was missing was, it had to be God. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, I was even though I rode with 25, 30 people every day, I was still alone. I still felt a yearning for something else that I couldn't explain, and Satan would always try to get me to drink some more, smoke some more, but it still was something missing, that I couldn't really put my finger on. But I knew God was in the center of that, and I couldn't. And at a point to where you're out there so long, and you're just, the devil will trick you to make you think that you cannot get back to God. He won't accept you, or you've done too much wrong, or but it was still something in me telling me you need to get back to church, get back to God, turn your life around before it's too late. I recorded my last album, Solo Bolo, and that was my 14th album. And we shot a brand new video to it, and we were just getting ready to go launch it out and go do a bunch of concerts and stuff like that. When one morning I'll never forget it, October 31st, 2011. I got up. It was a regular morning. It wasn't really nothing out of the ordinary about that morning. And I went back in the office of my house, and my main routine is, a lot of things that I'm saying to y'all, I want you to know that I'm not proud of, what I used to be or what I used to do. but it's the truth. So I got to tell you the truth, and I found out if you tell the truth, your story and your testimony will never change. It'll be the same every time you tell it. And I went back in the back of my office. I had no idea, what was about to happen that day in my life. But I went back there and smoked my little weed and, begin to, get ready for the day. And all of a sudden, just I can feel God's hand on me. Just the feeling is unexplainable. He didn't speak to me in an audible voice. The room didn't get dim. There wasn't no angels floating around like everybody might say. That's their experience. That wasn't mine. But I can just feel God telling me to come now. Come now. And I kind of shrugged it off. I didn't, really pay no attention. I even went out of the office a few times, just feeling strange. And I went back in there again. And then he led me to listen to a woman, and her name is Mary Kay Baxter. And she told her testimony about her 2 hours in hell, that God took her to hell. And the more she talked and the more she described hell and described the torment and the agony and all the people that was down there crying and screaming and pain and all these different things she would describe, I knew for some reason that, that would be me eventually if I didn't change. I had no idea. God, of course, God's always, I'm always thinking about God. He's always on my mind, but I had no idea what was about to happen. And the more I sat there, the more I can hear him speaking in my heart saying, come now, don't wait. Don't take a chance. And that's what so many people in hell today, they're there because they took a chance. They didn't, repent when they should have, and I didn't want to be one of those people that she described that was down there. So to make a long story short, I gave my life to the Lord that moment. And I'm not going to lie to you when I tell you I was still worried about, the devil will still sit on this side of your shoulder and say, look, don't forget all the success you just made and all these things, all these plans. You just shot a new video. You just got done with your new album, this and that, this and that. So he would still try to, discourage me and distract me. But it was something, in my heart that told me, don't take a chance. Stop taking a chance. Don't you, take another moment out here in these streets because, it might be your last. And then God began to show me just like that, he began to remind me of all of his mercies and all of his grace and all the times he spared me when I could have been killed and head-on collisions, guns pulled on me. Just so many different instances that he spared my life. And I started thinking that maybe this is the time to come. Even though I thought that I had it all planned. I was going to get saved when I was in my mid-40s and move to California, make a few million, send it back to my family in the church. And, then I'll get married. I had all these plans and I was going to do it my way. But when I heard that voice and that tugging saying, come now, that's when I came. And at that moment when I repented of my sins in the back of my office and I gave my life to the Lord, one thing about salvation is you don't get an email. You don't get a text message saying, now you're saved, my child. Or you don't get a letter in the mail. You just have to believe it by faith. And at that moment when I gave my life to the Lord, I knew down in my heart that I was saved, because by faith you're saved, And at that very moment, that's when J. Red Slevin died. I stopped hanging out at parties. I stopped hanging around my friends. I distanced myself. Me and my sister, we used to throw 2 or 3 get-togethers a week, and it'd be jam-packed of all of our friends, and she would still throw the get-togethers, but I'd be missing, and everybody was wondering, where's J. Red? Where's he at? Is he coming? Is he coming? And my sister would call me. Tara would call me and say, where you at? Everybody's over here looking for you, and all this stuff. And I'd say, well, I'm not coming, And eventually, it's not that I was ashamed of being saved. It was just, I don't know. I can't explain. I was just different. I didn't want to be around that kind of stuff. When you truly give your life to the Lord, you don't want to be around that stuff. And I'm going to tell everybody out there something. The day that I gave my life to Jesus Christ, that's when James Terry Parker Jr. was really born. You're not living a life if you're living without Christ. When you give your life to God is when your life really starts. And that's the best decision I've ever made.